He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a low, possessive rumble. "And I am never ever letting you leave this house." Morning light filtered through the thick, velvet curtains of the Romano estate, casting long, dramatic shadows across the polished marble floors. Chaos from the previous night had been entirely scrubbed away by Dominic's private, highly efficient cleanup crew. Nobody outside these heavily guarded walls would ever know a lethal assassin had been subdued by a combination of spilled dairy-shattered mayonnaise and Beatrice's spectacular, unpredictable clumsiness. Dominic sat quietly at the head of the massive mahogany dining table, slowly sipping his black espresso. His dark, calculating eyes remained firmly fixed on the swinging kitchen doors. Anticipation curled tightly in his broad chest. Moments later, those wooden doors swung open. Beatrice stumbled into the dining room, carrying a massive silver tray loaded with fluffy buttermilk pancakes, perfectly crispy bacon, and a precarious, wobbling tower of scrambled eggs. Her soft, round face was flushed with exertion and lingering embarrassment. Oversized grey sweatpants and a baggy, faded band t-shirt completely swallowed her magnificent curves. Hiding her body beneath layers of shapeless fabric was a clear sign of her deeply rooted insecurities. "Careful," Dominic warned softly, rising from his heavy leather chair to meet her halfway across the room. Taking the heavy silver tray from her trembling hands, his warm fingers brushed deliberately against hers. Electric heat shot rapidly up Beatrice's arm, making her gasp softly in surprise. Blushing furiously, Beatrice ducked her head, staring intently at the floor. "Thank you, Mr. Romano. Leo is still fast asleep upstairs, but I figured you might be incredibly hungry after everything that happened." "Dominic," he corrected smoothly, placing the mountain of food safely on the table. "My name is Dominic Beatrice. Calling me Mr. Romano feels entirely wrong, especially after you literally saved my life." Looking down at her own plush, slipper-clad feet, Beatrice nervously twisted the worn hem of her cotton shirt. "I really didn't do anything heroic, Dominic. Slipping on a puddle of milk and crushing a man isn't exactly a highly tactical combat move. Anyone could have done it." Stepping significantly closer, Dominic gently tipped her soft chin up with his calloused index finger. "None of my highly trained, heavily armed guards stopped that man from entering my home. You did. Stop diminishing your own brilliant light, Beatrice." Tears pricked her large brown eyes. Men like Dominic Romano did not look at women like her with such raw, unmasked, and intense admiration. High society corporate events and criminal underworld galas were exclusively populated by razor-thin, perfectly sculpted women who seemingly survived on kale leaves and expensive vodka. Beatrice was soft, thick, and undeniably heavy. Society had spent her entire 30 years telling her she took up entirely too much space. Yet Dominic's intense, predatory gaze made her feel exactly right. Later that afternoon, the sweltering Chicago heat became absolutely unbearable. Deciding to take advantage of the estate's private indoor pool, Beatrice slipped into a modest black one-piece swimsuit. Wrapping a large towel tightly around her heavy hips, she crept down the quiet corridors, praying fervently that no one would see her thighs jiggling. Slipping silently into the cool, refreshing water, Beatrice finally let out a long sigh of absolute relief. Cool water supported her generous weight, making her feel beautifully weightless and completely free. Unbeknownst to her, Dominic stood silently in the shadowed doorway, watching the water lap gently against her full breasts and smooth, thick thighs. His breath caught painfully in his throat. Cassandra's sharp, bony angles suddenly seemed entirely repulsive compared to the lush, inviting softness of the wonderful woman swimming before him. Removing his tailored suit jacket, Dominic walked slowly to the edge of the pool. Hearing his steady approach, Beatrice gasped loudly, furiously, treading water to hide her submerged body from his intense gaze. "Dominic, I thought you were in a meeting," Beatrice stammered, her round face turning a vibrant shade of crimson. "My meeting concluded early," Dominic replied, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. Crouching down gracefully at the edge of the tiled pool, he met her panicked gaze. "You look incredibly beautiful in the water, Beatrice. Stop trying to hide yourself from me." "I'm too big," Beatrice whispered sadly, a rogue tear slipping down her wet cheek. "I don't belong in a place like this, surrounded by endless perfection." Reaching out, Dominic firmly gripped her wet, slippery shoulder. "Perfection is a miserable, lonely illusion. You are profoundly real, Beatrice. Your body is a sanctuary. I want you exactly as you are." Meanwhile, deep within a grimy, abandoned shipping warehouse on the gritty south side, Arthur Pendleton was practically vibrating with homicidal rage. Smashing a heavy crystal whiskey decanter brutally against a solid brick wall, the Irish syndicate boss roared in utter frustration. His very best killer, the Viper, was currently rotting away in Dominic Romano's underground interrogation cells. How does a legendary hitman get completely neutralized by a fat nanny? Arthur bellowed, turning rapidly to face his trembling, heavily armed lieutenants. This is a profound, unforgivable humiliation. Stepping quietly out from the darkest corners of the warehouse, a familiar, terrifyingly thin figure smirked viciously. Cassandra DuPont had enthusiastically traded her designer silk gowns for a sleek black leather trench coat. Her cold eyes practically burned with vindictive, toxic malice. "Romano's new little pet is clumsy and pathetic, Arthur," Cassandra purred, walking confidently toward the furious mob boss. "Dominic actually fired me for that fat, disgusting cow. Dominic arrogantly thinks she is safe behind his high walls. However, I intimately know the master security codes to the estate's private, heavily wooded gardens." Arthur's fiery anger slowly morphed into a wicked, highly calculating grin. "Tell me absolutely everything, Cassandra. We are going to burn his beautiful empire completely to the ground, starting directly with the nanny." Friday evening suddenly arrived with a suffocating, miserable humidity that stubbornly clung to the towering Chicago skyline. Inside the heavily fortified Romano estate, Beatrice was blissfully, beautifully unaware of the impending lethal danger creeping toward her. Deciding to bake a massive 3-tier chocolate cake to properly celebrate little Leo's successful week of speaking his very first full sentences, she joyfully hummed a cheerful, upbeat pop song. White baking flour dusted her rosy, plump cheeks. Rich, dark chocolate frosting stained her oversized yellow apron. Her thick, lovely hips bumped playfully against the marble counter to the infectious rhythm of the music. Outside the mansion, utter chaos erupted without a single warning. Silenced, high-caliber gunshots shattered the quiet, peaceful night. Cassandra's stolen, highly classified security codes had successfully allowed Arthur Pendleton's heavily armed Ruthless crew to silently bypass the outer perimeter, completely swarming the manicured gardens. Dominic was aggressively reviewing financial documents in his study when the primary blaring alarms deafened the entire floor. Grabbing 2 customized, fully loaded Glock 19 pistols from his locked desk drawer, pure, unadulterated adrenaline rapidly surged through his veins. High-definition security monitors boldly displayed heavily armed intruders violently breaching the East Wing. One specific, horrifying camera feed made his blood run completely cold. Cassandra and Arthur were marching directly, purposely toward the kitchen. "Beatrice!" Dominic growled violently, sprinting out of the study with lethal, terrifying purpose. Back in the massive kitchen, Beatrice dropped her frosting-covered spatula in pure shock. Sturdy glass shattered violently as the massive, reinforced French doors leading to the patio were brutally kicked inward. Arthur Pendleton boldly strode into the room, expertly leveling a deadly sawed-off shotgun directly at her chest. Cassandra followed closely behind, cruelly sneering at the terrified, trembling Nanny. "Well, well, well." Arthur chuckled darkly, mockingly, eyeing Beatrice's soft, terrified form. This large woman must be Romano's infamous secret weapon. Frankly, my dear, I expected someone a bit more physically intimidating. Cassandra laughed, the sound sharp and exceptionally cruel. "I clearly told you, Arthur. Dominic foolishly traded a flawless diamond for a heavily frosted, pathetic donut. Now aggressively grab her. We will happily make Dominic watch us completely break his new favorite toy." Suffocating panic aggressively seized Beatrice's chest. Backing away slowly, her large, soft frame heavily collided with the massive rolling island cart, firmly positioned in the exact center of the kitchen. Arthur confidently lunged forward, intending to viciously grab her thick, dark hair. Survival instincts and sheer desperation suddenly took completely over. Shoving the heavy industrial rolling cart with all her substantial panicked might, Beatrice utilized every single ounce of her 250-pound strength. Sturdy metallic wheels squeaked loudly. Solid oak and granite barreled forcefully forward, smashing brutally and precisely into Arthur's kneecaps. Howling in blinding, excruciating agony, the notorious mob boss instantly dropped his loaded shotgun, collapsing and desperately clutching his shattered, broken legs. Cassandra shrieked in absolute outrage, rapidly pulling a small silver pistol from her expensive coat pocket. Aiming wildly at Beatrice, the furious Supermodel's bony hands visibly shook with uncontrollable rage. "Die, you miserable fat cow!" Cassandra screamed at the top of her lungs. Before the trigger could be successfully pulled, a deafening, thunderous roar loudly echoed through the grand kitchen. Dominic Romano aggressively stepped through the shattered, broken doorway, looking exactly like a vengeful, terrifying god of war. 2 incredibly precise shots from his Glocks instantly disarmed Cassandra and permanently lethally neutralized Arthur's 2 remaining advancing guards. Dropping her small weapon immediately, Cassandra heavily fell to her sharp knees, hysterically sobbing in absolute, profound terror. Ignoring the crying supermodel completely, Dominic frantically rushed to Beatrice, pulling her plush, flower-covered, beautiful body tightly into his broad chest. He deeply buried his face in her sweet-smelling dark curls. His rapidly beating heart pounded wildly against her soft, generous curves. "Are you hurt?" Dominic frantically demanded, his normally cold voice thick with uncharacteristic raw panic. His large, warm hands rapidly mapped every single inch of her broad shoulders and thick waist, thoroughly checking for any hidden injuries. "Only my fragile pride," Beatrice choked out softly, desperately wrapping her arms tightly around his broad, incredibly muscular back. "I completely ruined the chocolate cake for Leo." Looking down at the beautiful, incredibly brave, trembling woman securely held in his arms, Dominic slowly let out a ragged, emotional breath. "Forget the silly cake, Beatrice. I have miserably spent my entire violent life constantly surrounded by hollow people and completely empty promises. You beautifully brought light, genuine warmth and wonderful chaos into my incredibly dark, dangerous world. I deeply love your stunning softness. I passionately love your profound kindness. I genuinely love every single beautiful, perfect pound of you." Salty tears quickly spilled down Beatrice's rosy cheeks, messily mixing with the white flour on her face. For the very first time in her entire challenging life, she genuinely didn't feel too big or entirely out of place. Clinging tightly to the ruthless, powerful Mafia boss, who had violently conquered the entire city just to fiercely protect her, she beautifully felt exactly the perfect size. Dominic lovingly leaned down, passionately, capturing her sweet lips in a deep, utterly consuming kiss. Violent chaos violently swirled all around them, but standing safely in the center of the kitchen, surrounded completely by broken glass and spilled chocolate frosting, two vastly different souls had finally found perfect, enduring peace.